Welcome to the Rest of Us podcast. My name is Noah Hutton, and I'm your host. Each week, I'll have a new entrepreneur on, talk about their story, their struggles, and their lessons learned. This week, my guest is Sasha Willis. She is the owner of Strategy by Sasha and helps creative business owners, specifically women, build their business, grow their brand, build an authentic brand, and just help with business strategy and creative business growth in general. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. It was great. We talked about outsourcing. We talked about the different forms of entrepreneurship and why, one path may not be good for somebody else. It's good for me or good for her. So I think the conversation was really good, and I'm really excited for you to hear it. So without further ado, here is my interview with Sasha Willis. Sasha Willis, welcome to the Rest of Us podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk to you. I know you don't necessarily look like the guests I've had in the past, but I thought I would switch it up a little bit and bring on somebody with a little bit different experience to kind of talk about their entrepreneurship journey, because as we all know, entrepreneurship comes in many different flavors. So I'm excited to kind of hear how you approached it, why you got into running your own business, and the advice that you can give to our listeners. We were talking earlier this week, and I'm really excited to bring up a couple topics that you like to talk about, because I think there are things that entrepreneurs need to hear about and need to have those discussions about. So I'm really excited to get into it. Before we get into that, I'll just kind of start how I always start. I'll have you introduce yourself, talk about kind of what you do, what your business is, things like that.
Sure. So I am Sasha. Of course, you introduced me that way already, but my business is called Strategy by Sasha, and I am a business strategist. And so I work primarily with creative women entrepreneurs to help them bring strategy, action plan, goal set within their business, kind of create systems, automation, so that way they can take a step back from their business. They can put boundaries in place. I'm a very big believer in boundaries and work-life balance. And so that way they're not always in front of a computer. Their business can still scale and they can enjoy their life and have a business the way they want to. My business was not that. That's not what I started it as. I started it about, I guess it was 2023. So about 13 years ago, in a completely different field. I used to do scrapbooking, and then that merged into wedding stationery. And I switched to doing strategy once I had my son in 2017. But I really just started my business as a creative outlet. That's why I got into it. I still, to this day, have a full-time job. I like it, but I also like helping women and like helping creative people. And so that's why I have my business.
Absolutely. I think you and I both are the same way in the sense that we need some way to have a creative outlet. Like our work maybe not as creative. Like for me, it's real estate. Like real estate can be creative, but generally it's not. It's very technical. It's very kind of like formulaic with how you're shooting a house. But so then I have this podcast, which is maybe a little more creative, or I do other shoots and other types of things, photography wise, that have that creative outlet. And it sounds like you were the same way. Maybe your job isn't creative, but then you have this other venture that is more creative.
Yep, exactly. I also have like 2 podcasts of my own, so I do a lot of things.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, all entrepreneurs, I feel like no matter what, we are always doing a lot of things, whether we want to or not. We are. So
it's hard to sit down and just not do things.
Yeah, because when you sit down, you're sitting down thinking about what you could be doing or what you should be doing. So, which I feel like is a topic we might get into in the future. But so let's just kind of start with, you talked about it a little bit, kind of your story and your journey into entrepreneurship, why you chose to go that route. I know you kind of mentioned already, but let's go a little bit more in depth into that and just how you got from where you started to where you are now.
Yeah. So when I first started back in 2010, I was just out of grad school. I never intended to actually be an entrepreneur. I went to school for business management. I have a master's in HR. That's what my day job is. And I work for the government. I was like, this is a good job. I don't need to do anything else. And so, at the time, you couldn't really take pictures from your phone, and people weren't printing them out that much anymore. The photo album wasn't really a thing. And it was like right before the services were like chapbooks, where you could like upload pictures and actually get a printed book sent to you. And scrapbooking was like really big, but scrapbooking takes a creative person, right? Like you have to make it look pretty. That's the whole point of scrapbooking. And so I started with that. I started just helping people take the pictures that they have and put them in a nice little scrapbook. That quickly turned into me doing stationery. So I did all sorts of stationery. I did like Christmas cards, birthday cards, all of that, which slowly then morphed into me doing primarily wedding stationery and really getting connected with a lot of wedding planners in my area and focusing mainly on just wedding stationery. At the time, my business, that's probably around 2015, 16. And then I also did event styling. So not the planning piece of it, but you know, if you ever are on Pinterest and you see the pretty birthday dessert tables and things like that,
Yeah.
I loved doing things like that. I love a good theme. And so like for my own parties, I would go all out for stuff like that. So I did stationery and event styling. And pretty much when I got pregnant, I had to put the event styling to the side. It was just physically too much. And when I had my son, I got tired of dealing with couples at that point. Anything in wedding, it's a lot of last minute, especially with stationery, because people get like their escrow cards and table numbers and a lot of that stuff changes right almost like the week of the wedding. And I had a newborn. I didn't really have the time. I was going to my full-time job. I was coming home, putting my son to bed at like 8 and then working until like 11 p.m. I just didn't want to do that anymore. So that's when I pivoted into my business strategy. And at the time it was like strategy and lifestyle. So I started making some products. I sold mugs, I sold t-shirts and things like that. And eventually I just switched all the way to business strategy. I still sell like certain mugs on my website. I sell notebooks and planners and things like that. But that's kind of my journey into how I got to where I am now. I realized that at one point, a lot of creative people are really good at what they do, like photography, for example. You're probably amazing at photography. But trying to translate that into a business, a lot of creatives aren't the best at it. They don't know how to run a business. They don't think like that. Honestly, it's hard to figure out how to price yourself or, you know, any of that stuff. And so I started getting a lot of questions around that. And that's when I was like, you know what, this is my lane and this is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. I mean, basically running a creative business is almost two businesses because you have the business of the accounting and the, you know, networking and just like getting your business in order, the legal stuff, the insurance. I just got insurance for the first time, like talk to me about that, all these type of things. That's one side of it. And once you get those systems in place, it kind of runs itself and more or less is like done. But getting those systems in place is a whole thing unto itself.
Yeah.
And then you have the creative side of it, which is where primarily most of your time is. But when you're getting started, it's like 200% of your time. Because like you're just doing all of it. And so, yeah, I totally agree that like creative, like I find myself, I'm very creative. I love being creative. I love doing my photography and all this kind of stuff. But that takes up so much of my time. And then I have to respond to emails. And then I have to meet with my accountant. And then I have to go to get insurance and then I have to meet with this agency or this like thing. Like I have all these meetings on top of the 10 hours a day I'm spending, you know, shooting, editing, conversing with clients, all this kind of stuff. So I totally agree that like creatives, it can be really hard to run a business. And I think that's why a lot of creatives do like the freelance model because it's not as much of a business. But if you want to like scale and grow, you know, you go to the LLC route or you go to the S Corp route and you like go that way, which is again more businessy stuff that you don't necessarily want to do because you just want to be creative. So I want to go back a little bit to your earlier businesses, the scrapbooking and the wedding planning stuff. Was that something where you were just doing it for fun? Like you were always a scrapbooking kind of person and somebody said like, hey, will you do mine? Or was that like, where you were like, I am making this a business. Like I want to go that route.
It definitely started as a hobby. Like it was, I did my own scrapbook in high school, for me and my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time. And I was good at designing on the computer. Like my mom is an artist, so she's really good at painting and art. I didn't really get that part of the creative gene. I'm good with things on the computer. And so I was good at kind of doing things that way. And that kind of led to people asking like, oh, could you do this for me? And I never considered myself entrepreneurial, but part of me was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this for free though. And so that's kind of how I started, like, okay, I'll just make this a thing, and this will be a business that I have on the side. And I made my own website. Like I did all of it myself at the beginning.
And as you grew, that was the idea. Did you ever get to the point where you're like, okay, this is going to be my full-time business, or were you always seeing it as kind of like a side hustle type thing? Like, I'm going to get the full-time job, the 9 to 5, and then do the business side of it. Was there?
I never anticipated. I didn't want my business to be, and I still don't want my business to be my full-time job. Okay. My job is easy and it's secure and it pays the bills. Like I said, I'm married. I have one son, and I'm the breadwinner for us. So my husband's a police officer. So my job has always just been, that's going to be my job. I'll do it till I retire, but it's easy enough that I have enough time to still run a business. So I didn't intend and don't intend to make my business full time. But I also think there's a misconception that, not making a business full time doesn't make it like a legitimate business, or it's a side hustle. And I think there's a difference between a side hustle and like a business that you have that you just don't do full time. Like side hustles is like, to me, it's like, oh, I'm doing it for fun. And, it is what it is. Maybe like, I'm not really trying that hard, but my business is like a legit business. I just don't want to do it full time.
No, that's totally fair. I've kind of had that. I mean, I'm kind of early on in the career kind of thing, but I've always I've had the opportunity to take a job that I probably would see as like, oh, it's easy and it's like going to be a good 9 to 5 and I'll get paid. Or like if I stay as part-time in this job, it'll be an easy. But for me, the way that I think about it is I could be putting those 4 to 8 hours into my business. I could be putting those 4 to 8 hours into like, instead of doing those 4 hours from like 8 to 12 p.m., I could take that 8 to 12 p.m. and just make it like my time.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a trade-off.
For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a trade-off. I think that, like just for me and for a lot of people that I work with, they are trying to go full time, but having a job just gives you the security that like it can push you to do things in your business that you might otherwise not do because you have to make money in your business. Yep. It has to support you. Whereas me, my business, because it's not my full-time income, I'm not dependent on the money that I make from it coming in. So I'm able to like, oh, let me try this, or, I'll launch this product or something like that. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it kind of gives me a little bit more peace of mind.
Yes. Oh, I mean, the peace of mind thing is huge because, like, for me, like, I'm going full time with my business in May officially, and like, I see the like light at the end of the tunnel where I'm like, I'm making enough money to be full time, but I also see the weeks where I have zero client work and I have zero work, and I'm like,
and that's scary.
The stressful week of my life. Yeah, it's scary. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have a car payment due and I can't pay it or whatever, or I'm gonna have like a house payment due. And I'm trying to buy a house or something and I don't have the money for it because I'm not working this week. So it is scary. So I do see I think like I talked about this from the first episode to now, like on the podcast, like you need to support yourself first, whatever that is for you. Like you need to support, and especially with you with a kid and a husband and, a family, you have to pay those bills first. That's like the long and short of it. So I totally see, I think it's just a mindset thing, and it's kind of like whatever you're comfortable with. Like if you have that easy 9 to 5, do it. Like you're gonna make so much money, or like a decent amount of money, and like be totally fine. Your bills are paid. You're set, and then you're doing the side hustle, and like or not side hustle, like the job you talked about that you talked about where you can try things without that financial like penalty if they don't work. Whereas like for me, like if I try to go into a space or try to do this extra project and it doesn't work out, that's 20 to 40, 60 hours or whatever that I could have been just, shooting that safe industry that I'm already in. So I definitely see there's pros and cons to both of it, and both of them. And it's really just kind of like where you want to go in your mindset and what you with.
It's just kind of what you want your business to do for you. So like my full-time pays my bills. My business gives us like fun money, and that's like lifestyle that, we can travel, and I can pay for my son's everything that he's in. Like that's it's just what you want your business to do. Yep.
Absolutely. That's kind of where I am now, is like, okay, how we're making, that's like my bills and my daily expenses. And then like if I can pay myself in my business, like that's like, oh, I can take this trip, or I can spend an extra day. Like, let's say I'm traveling for work, I can spend an extra day in this city that I'm traveling for, and like, have that day to myself before I go back home. Like that's so I totally see that. I would love to get there with my business one day. So let's kind of transition, into some of the topics we talked about. One thing that I noticed immediately when we were talking is the idea of outsourcing. And I think that is especially for the photographers and the videographers. And I'm sure it is for other businesses as well, but especially for those two, outsourcing is huge. And there's kind of like, you get to the point where you don't want to edit anymore, or you need a second shooter, or you need, somebody to do your social media or whatever it is. So kind of talk about why outsourcing is so important for creative entrepreneurs, and kind of your mindset on that topic specifically.
Yeah. I mean, anytime, if you want to grow your business to a certain level, you will get to a point where you have to outsource, because there are not enough of you, enough hours in the day to do everything that needs to be done in a business. Like you mentioned, you go on a shoot for like 8 hours, and then you have like 5 hours where you got to edit. Like, who is doing your social media at that point, or sending the emails, or writing the email blasts, or doing your bookkeeping? Like, you will get to a point, and there's only so many clients that you can take on if certain things are still being done by you. So I'm a big proponent of letting things go in your business, especially things you don't like to do. So if you don't like the finance piece of it, you're not really good at your bookkeeping, like hire a bookkeeper to just enter that stuff in you. I have, in my own business, I can do the things myself, but I pay someone to do my graphics for both of my podcasts and my podcast network that I have. And, she does it every week. I just do my captions for it, but it frees up the time that I need to focus on other things, because I don't want to spend my time where I could be focusing on doing things that are going to grow my business, instead of working like on the little things that I have to do for my business. And that's really kind of what it is. I call it like being the CEO of your business. So like, you get to a point where instead of you working so much in your business, you need to be able to work on it. And that's like thinking of the next steps that come. Like, where do you want your business to go? What are your goals for your business? How many clients do you need to take on, or do you want to take on at what price point? And letting someone else do all of the like quote unquote busy work that comes with owning a business.
Absolutely. And you talked about, when we were talking, I kind of like mentioned jokingly that I like thought about outsourcing, and I was looking at like, for real estate and stuff. And you said, you're already there, or you're past that point. Like, you need to outsource. So like, when do people kind of, is it just when they even like consider it that they know they're already there, or when is that point where they know that they're ready to outsource?
I think most of the time, by the time you start thinking about, I should probably outsource, you are already at the point, past the point where you probably need to ask for help. We often are ready to we need to outsource before we're ready to outsource. It can be hard to let things go, and we're worried about someone doing things the way that we would do them, or, things falling through the crack because we're not the ones managing it. But if you have to, be able to find the right people, and then trust those people that they're going to do what they are capable of doing. So like, for example, hiring someone to edit for you, right? Like, you can very easily look at people's portfolios and see if their editing style matches yours. You can have them, give them a picture and ask them to do a short little test. How long does it take you to edit this one picture, to see if that timing works for you? So there are ways to test whether people are the right people for you. But honestly, like, if you hate doing something in your business, like if you hate editing pictures, and, something that should take you like an hour is taking you like 4 hours, that's something that you should just let go, because that 4 hours that you're spending on that would be better served doing something else in your business. So I always say, if you don't like to do it, like, that should be the first thing that get off your list. And then things that are going to give you more time back, or just even more mental energy back. So for myself, like, if you can do your social media graphics, but you don't really ever get to it, it's something that keeps falling by the list, it's an important piece of my business, let that go. Let someone else do that for you, and then focus on what you're, it's the quote unquote zone of genius, like where you're good at in your business.
Absolutely. And like for me, like social media is the big one, right? Like I should be posting on social media a lot more. I went through like my last like shoots and found like, okay, here's like 5 photos from each shoot that I could post on social media, and they're still sitting in a folder that should be posted on social media. So, and my biggest, like, I guess my biggest opposition or objection to outsourcing, and it's not because I don't think I should do it. I definitely should be doing it. It's justifying the expense kind of in like the financial aspect of it, because like, I mean, I know how much I charge for photography, and I'm always saying like you should invest in professional photography and video for your business. But then it's weird when I want to invest in professional social media management for my business, or I want to invest in, you know, I will pay for photography because I see the value because I do it. But I think that those other things like social media management or editing my podcast clips or something, it's not that I don't see the value, it's that I know how much should be charged because I do that work.
Yeah.
And then justifying that expense for my business is the hardest part. So if like a client comes to you and says like, I really should outsource, but like, I don't know if I have the money, or like, I don't know if I have the finance to back it up. What do you say to those people? Because I'm sure you've gotten that objection before.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, that especially when you haven't outsourced before, that's the first thing that comes up. Like, I don't know if I can afford to outsource, or, you know, maybe I have this budget and I'm barely like going to be able to kind of do that, like outsource with this budget. And the thing is that when you outsourcing and you're worried about the financial aspect of it, you might not necessarily see that money back like dollar for dollar, especially at first. But what you do get back is your time. And our time is very precious and valuable, and how we spend our time in our business is valuable. And so, like I said, if you're spending, you know, for your social media, like your social media is not growing, people aren't seeing you, you know, that area of your business is kind of lacking right now. If you outsource that, and maybe you're not going to see like a client or two for like 3 to 6 months actually come in from that work, what you will get is one, an active social media presence, but all of that time that you're worrying about sifting through pictures and coming up with captions and making the graphics and posting and all that, that gets done for you. And it's getting done on a consistent basis that is helping to build your brand. And that goes with anything with outsourcing. Like, you're going to get time back that allows you to book more clients. You know, like, you can take on a client instead of having to worry about your social media, and you can just have that person go through your photos, or just like pick out the 5 photos and go, here you go, like schedule to post these. So it's all about, at the beginning, especially, it's almost most of the time a trade-off from your time to like what you're paying for your time back is essentially what the trade-off tends to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, like for me, like one of the things I enjoy in the business the most is the networking and like meeting with people and stuff like that. So like if I got, you know, I outsource my social media, for example, or outsource my editing. You know, editing a photos of a house takes, you know, between an hour and 5 hours, depending on the size of the house. That's like a ton of time that I could be calling clients or meeting with clients and stuff like that. So, I think
exactly
for creative entrepreneurs, that is what you should be doing, is networking with clients, meeting new clients, and just building that network, or building your network, and getting your face out there rather than just your name, because that's what is going to get you that job, is like, you know, talking to people versus just like cold calling or anything like that. So, yeah, I think outsourcing is really scary for creatives, but it's really necessary. And I'm really glad we kind of finally talked about it on the podcast, because I don't think it's something that's talked about enough. Because, you know, we are also control freaks and perfectionists, and we want to do all that work. And there's nothing wrong with doing the work, especially if you're trying to learn it. But at some point, you know, you have to choose which areas of the business you want to focus on, and then how outsource. And maybe like you want to hire in the future. Like, once you hire somebody, continue.
Well, what I was gonna say is, like, sometimes what we're outsourcing, like we can do it, but it's not what we're the best at, right? Yep. And so what would take us like 5 hours to do might take someone that we're outsourcing an hour to do. Like, they're going to be more efficient at it than we're going to be at it. And like you said, for especially creatives, like, you have to always be networking or thinking about what comes next in your business. So like for planning for those times where you might not have a client for the week, right? Like it's like, okay, and let me think about how I'm going to start marketing my business differently. Or is there a different service that I can add, or, something that I can put into my business? It allows you and frees up that time for you to think more strategically about business instead of just like doing your business. Like when you get rid of the things that are taking up a lot of time, you can really start to like plan for your business instead of your business just like happening and you kind of reacting to it.
Absolutely. And like one of the things I always say that I never use anything I learned in college, but just kind of in this conversation now, like when I was a marketing student, and one of the things the marketing professors always told us, is specifically this one professor, and I was like, strategy. I don't want to do strategy. I want to do tactics. I want to place the ads. I want to do the design work. I want to do all this. But the most successful brands in the world, the Coca-Colas, the Microsofts, the Apples, the Googles, their strategy is like locked in 100%. They know exactly what they're doing. And that, like, it might be boring. It might not be great to you. But, maybe that is something you outsource. Maybe you figure out kind of your,
I'm a business strategist, so I'm a little bit biased, but I believe you have to have a strategy or else you don't know what you're working towards, right? Like if you want to make, $100,000 a year but you have no idea of like how many clients that equals or like, where those clients are coming from or what product or service those clients really want, like you're just you're not gonna like put in the work to figure out, okay, I know if I want to make this much, I have to book this many clients. And if I have to book this many clients, I need to go to X number of networking events, or I need to be sending out these many email blasts, or, things like that. If you're not in that frame of mind, you're a freelancer. You're like a photographer. Someone else is managing kind of where your stuff is coming from, and you're just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, definitely. I forget the term. My professor used a really good term to describe that, but it's basically, you're just like marketing at random or doing stuff at random and like not really like, okay, I want to grow my real estate business from like 3 agents that I work with to 12. Like, how am I going to get there? You're just kind of like, oh, like maybe the real estate agents will come in like here and there. You get to 12 agents. You just have to have a cohesive strategy to get there. Because I think that is, very good advice to entrepreneurs and very good conversations to have. One thing that I also wanted to kind of talk about, I talk about this all the time, but I wanted to get your opinion on it just because you're do this for a living as a strategist, kind of pricing for creatives. What is something that you like? How do you approach that conversation with creatives? And what are some of the things that you tell them about how to figure out how to price themselves? Because that is the hardest thing for creative entrepreneurs to do.
Yeah, I was going to say pricing for creatives is such a challenge for most of them. I think way too many undervalue themselves and as a whole bring down whatever their creative industry is because they don't understand. They only see like, oh, I just take pictures, right? Or people think I just take pictures, so I can't charge that much. Or I'm only taking pictures for like 2 hours at an event, so I can't really charge that much. But think about all the time that one, you had to learn that craft and to be able to do it on a professional level. But then two, like everything that comes behind it, like the editing, the marketing, like, the client back and forth, getting all of the equipment that you need. All of that comes with a cost. And so most of the people that I work with, when I first start working with them, they're never charging enough. I mean, even if you break it down, what they charge on an hourly basis, and that's the first thing to do, like really just like look at whatever you're charging and then break down how much time this takes you. And most of the time you are making dollars on the hour, like sometimes even pennies on the hour. And then you wonder like you're burnt out. And it's like, yeah, because you're not charging enough. And creative professions tend to be devalued because people just don't understand the like artsy stuff is just not something that society in general tends to value. And so people don't understand the worth behind it. But I think as more and more creatives like start like really pushing like, no, I am worth like, my photography and what I have to do all of this is worth X because I need to have a life. Like I need to be able to pay for bills and support myself. Then that will hopefully help lift up like the industries as a whole. I think unfortunately you have a lot of hobbyists who, because they're not doing it to make money, they tend to undercut the whole market. But if you're going to do it as a business, I always start with what you want to get paid an hour. Like if you were working a 9 to 5, what do you want to get paid an hour? What do you need to live off of? And work backwards from that to get to what your pricing is, because most likely you're not charging enough.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the most important things I did for my business was set out what I wanted to, or my monthly costs were on a personal side and also my business side. So like personal is, once I have a car payment, what does that car payment look like? Once I have a house payment, what does that house payment like? What do I want to spend on food and all these kind of like personal expenses, like normal day in the life expenses. And then on the business side, it was, how much does my accountant cost? How much does all these subscription services cost? Because I know, Lord knows I have too many, but I'm using them all the time. And so I have them. How much does that cost? And then adding this together, and then it's, however many thousands of dollars a month. And then that's your cost per month that you are paying out. And then like, okay, I want to make.
And then like life.
Yes, life. Yeah, exactly. But like I think it's a little bit different in the 9 to 5 because somebody already decided how much you're getting paid. Like for your salary, like you have that salary and that that how much you're getting paid. And then that's how you base your expenses off of that. Like, okay, I'm getting paid, this much a month. That determines my rent. I'm getting paid this much. That determines my car. But for a business owner, you can kind of decide that. You just have to work towards this. I can decide, okay, I want to make $8,000 a month, or I want to make $10,000 a month, or I want to make $50,000 a month. What does that look like? How many clients is that worth? And so I think for any business owner, if you haven't yet, sit down, set up all your expenses, everything, and even the smallest things. I pay $6 a month for my business email or something like that. Like those little things, they add up.
Or like your Starbucks when you go and get your coffee every day. Like,
I mean, we don't really talk about that, but like as I have a Starbucks right here.
Oh, I go to Starbucks all the time. I love Starbucks. So, but like, account for the things that you want to do in your life. Exactly. Like not just like my bills and what my business costs, but maybe I don't want to work, on Fridays, or maybe I want to, have a vacation twice a year, and that's going to cost around this much money. So I need to make this much. And the good thing is too, when you're doing all of that pricing, you'll get to a point in your business where you can say, you know what, I don't want to have like 10 clients every month. Like it might be too much work for me to try to get 10 clients anywhere, but I can double my prices or raise my prices enough where I only need to take 5. And now I have more time for myself to focus on, my life, the things that come outside of business and work, and my fun types of things. And so that's like, make a budget, figure out what everything costs you. And that should be your starting point. Yes.
Oh, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like if your costs are $5,000 a month on top for everything, you shouldn't be making $5,000 a month. No. You should be making 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. You should be making a lot more than that because
what people also forget is that taxes will come out of that at some point.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Oh yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things I think new business owners don't necessarily think about. And what I always say to anybody I talk about who's starting a business or getting a business, if they haven't yet, talk to an accountant. That should be your first thing you outsource immediately, unless you studied accounting in college and you know exactly what you're doing and you're good, which is not most business owners. Yeah. You need to talk to an accountant because they will just clean it up right away. I talked to one earlier than I thought I would, honestly, but I was like, it was worth it. Like I paid them, to do my taxes this year, and it was so worth it. I didn't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah. At minimum, whatever you think you should be charging at 30%, because that 30% is going to go to taxes. And you should be putting that money aside with every client that you have, some of it. And you would be surprised how many people forget that. They're like, oh, I got $1,000 from this client. It's like, not really.
No, not really. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's the one thing my accountant told me. I was like, how do I like know how much? Because like it's not like you're paying taxes it depends on your business, but sometimes you're not usually paying taxes every month or doing your taxes. It's the end of the year thing, and maybe you made a big purchase at the end of the year, but you're still owe on taxes or something, and you're like, oh, I don't have that money, like, or something like that. Like, so yeah, definitely set aside money for taxes. But the other thing with pricing, I think the one thing we talked about undervaluing like our work, which I did in the beginning. Like I was charging so much less for real estate than everybody else. But my mindset going into that was like, okay, I'm going to be the cheap guy, but I'm going to do the high quality. So everybody's going to hire me. Like, I'm going to be cheap and do the good work. So then everybody's going to hire me. And guess what? Nobody hired me.
Yeah, you can price yourself too low where people are like, oh, this isn't good quality. But then also a lot of times too, if you're not pricing yourself good enough, you are going to get the worst clients because they are the people who are budget shopping and think because, oh, I paid you $200, like you need to do everything for me. Whereas most of the time, 90% of the time, when you start pricing accordingly, you get better clients. Like they value the work that you're doing and they understand like how much time it takes and that you're giving them something back, and they value all of that. So most of the time they're the easiest clients to have. Yes. The ones who are just willing to give the money are like the easiest clients. The ones who are paying like $200, like they want to nickel and dime you. Yep. They want to try to add more things to what, you said you were going to do for them. So a lot of times you'll get better clients when you raise prices too.
Oh, I can attest to that. Absolutely. I just got a client. I shot with them yesterday all day, and they were the best because they were like, what do we need? It wasn't the like, okay, what can we afford? It was, what do we need for this project? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, you need this, this, and this. And I know you're maybe a little price conscious, so let's, work around your budget. But when they tell me, what do we need? Like we're building out a full studio for them. It isn't, what is the minimum we can do? Can we just get, a little like tiny little camera from Best Buy and do this? It's like, no, like we want to do this right. What are we going to need? And they're, investing the money into that, not just paying me, but investing in the gear and all this kind of stuff. So they value that. And it's also one thing that I would want to say, and I think creative entrepreneurs don't do this enough, is, if you think you're at a number that this client will like, maybe raise it 20% and then throw that at them. Like, I think you'll be really surprised at how much people are willing to pay. And there are going to be some times where you throw out the number and that scares away the client. And like, okay, now it's maybe a little too high for them. But there are going to be a lot of clients that maybe come back and be like, okay, I see you threw out $5,000 a month for this project or whatever. Let's see what can you do at $4,000. Yeah. And so in that situation, you're not even doing the same amount of work for less. You're saying, okay, that's okay. Instead of 8 hours a month of work, we're doing 6 hours a month of work, or we're doing 3 less videos or something. So you're not even like doing more work for less money. You're just adjusting. You're
not discounting because a lot of people's tendencies is to, it's okay. Like I'll do it for $4,000. Yep. Like, no, for your budget, this is what I can do instead. Like that's how you can work with clients who might not be able to afford you, but maybe you really want to work with them. Let them know, okay, what's your budget? Here's what I can do instead. Don't devalue yourself. Like whatever 5,000 is worth, keep that at 5,000, but think about, okay, if you can afford this, this is what I can do at that price point.
Yeah, I think something really important to do when you're kind of pitching to clients is itemize your kind of pitch. So like for me, like for this client, we're doing, maybe 3 shoot days a month, 3 8-hour days a month. So that's 3 of my day rate. And then we're doing 2 events a month. And then we're doing maybe like 10 hours of just like whatever you want time. And I itemize that by the hour and by the day rate and by the event rate and all this kind of stuff. And they really like that because then they could maybe see like, okay, that's a little bit high for us right now. Like we're not doing a ton of events right now. So we don't need 2 events a month. So then let's do the 2 days a month of the shoot days, the 5 hours of whatever time. And then we just itemize that a little bit down. And now we're at their budget and my prices are the same. I just am maybe not making enough as much a month as I thought, but maybe that grows in the future. Maybe they do 2 events in the next 3 months. So like
I would caution I would caution and say though, itemizing works only when you're at a certain price point, because sometimes when you itemize and you're too low to begin with, what happens is you'll start getting people who want to nickel and dime you, who are like, oh, like I don't, even though it takes you 8 hours, like, can I only pay for 6? Like, cause I really only need 6 hours, or I only think it's going to take this long. And so like, if you're at a good price point, then yeah, you can say like, this service is X, this service is X. But if you're still not charging enough, when you lay it out like that, you'll get people who want to like X out what things cost. And then you're left like, no, I can't do what you're asking of me with what you're trying to pay.
Yeah, I think in that situation, you do kind of have to stand firm and be like, okay, I know you maybe think this shoot is going to take 6 hours, but I promise you it's going to take 10 and we're going to do it in 8. Like, that's kind of the situation. Like I would love to have, 10, 12 hours for this project. We can get it done at 8 and that's what we're going to charge. But like, I can't do it in 6. Like that's that's too much. So I think, pricing yourself is so such a difficult thing to do. But I think if you get to the right price, itemizing it, a lot of businesses do appreciate that, because, if you just say, okay, my retainer fee is $5,000 a month, and like, well, what are we paying for? What does 5,000 get us? But if I break it down, and travel is another thing. I think travel is another thing that business or creative entrepreneurs, especially if you are like doing, video or photography, or you're going on site for something, you don't think about. That's the other thing you have to think about, is like adding travel into there, because you have gas, you have depreciation on your car. Like, let's say you buy a car for your business, there's like that accounting depreciation stuff that I don't understand, but it happens, and so that's something you have to account for, both literally and figuratively. And so those are other things you have to include. That, and that's what I had to tell them, like, hey, for this client, I'm driving 2 hours there, 2 hours back. I did it yesterday. Like 20-hour day for me. It was insane. It was fun. And but I had to account for that. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do a 20-hour day, and like some of that's travel, some of that was just getting like after the shoot, getting like lunch or dinner or whatever. But like, if I have to do all this, we got to have a travel fee in there, because I got to pay for gas, I got to pay for food, all this kind of stuff. So, and
people forget about that type of cost. They're just like, people it's
forget about food.
Yeah, it's just like, I only charge for like when I'm actually working. And it's like, no, there's so much stuff that comes with that. I did want to point out, like, what you said about itemizing. Like, I think it's always good to say, okay, I cost $5,000. Let them know what's included in that. Where I'm against itemizing is like, oh, like $400 is this, like $300 is that, because that's when you start getting people trying to X stuff out. If you're just like, oh, this is, this costs $5,000. This is what $5,000 gets you, 10 hours of shoot time, travel back and forth, whatever that stuff is. That's a way to do it. Like, to let them, and then, cause people respond really well. And it's just psychology almost. If you can bullet list anything, and it's a long bullet list, people are like, this is so much stuff. And like, they feel like they're getting a lot, even though for you, it's not necessarily like that big. But if people feel like they're getting a lot for whatever price it is, then they're more likely to say, oh, this is a good value, and kind of go with it.
Yeah. So in that situation, maybe you're not like adding a number to each item. Are you including those expenses that are more for you than for them, like the per diem, like your food or your gas, or
so like stuff like that? I would just roll up into like a travel fee, right?
Yeah,
like, and then on the back end, like, okay, my per diem is this, or my mileage is like 56 cents a mile or whatever it is for accounting purposes.
Now, but
it's good. Yeah. So like, that, I've accounted for it already, but this is the travel fee. Like,
they don't necessarily need to know that.
No, like, because most of the time, when you give too much information, that's when, one, it overwhelms people, but also that's when you start getting people like, well, why do I need to pay for like your lunch? Like, it's stuff like that. Whereas you just roll it up and you're just like confident and like, this is the cost. And then people are like, okay, like that makes sense.
Yeah. I think when you just like telling them like, hey, I need a $75 per diem, and that's going to cover everything that I need to do within the day. And like that is like, hey, I don't worry about what that covers. I will take care of myself. Just, I need $75 a day.
This is what I charge. Like, period. And I think, creative owners in general need to get comfortable with just like not having to explain. Like, this is what my price is. Like, my per diem rate, my travel rate is $75. period. Like that's a sentence right there. You don't have to say like I have to pay for, it's just, this is my rate. And like end of story. You don't have to justify what you're charging in your business. And of course you have to show the value of what you're providing, but you don't have to show where every penny is going, because I think that goes back to like where people, we don't necessarily value what we're doing. And so we feel like, oh, I have to, I don't really feel comfortable charging $5,000. So I have to justify why I'm charging $5,000. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, as long as you're showing up, this is everything that you're getting for $5,000. That's it. Like, end of sentence. This is my price.
Yes. I did that like 2 days ago. I had a realtor call me and he's like, we're doing an Airbnb, and I do a different pricing for rentals and stuff like that. And I'm not even going to explain why, but I do different pricing for rentals. But in that conversation, I then explained to him why I have different pricing for rentals, and it is higher than my regular listing pricing. Bad idea. Like I knew he was going to pay for it, so I was fine with it. But I didn't need to explain that. I probably shouldn't have, because if it was a different client that I wasn't confident was going to hire me, then like I knew he was going to hire me. We had already had this conversation. I was fine with it. But if this was a new realtor coming to me and saying like, hey, I have a rental on this lake, we're going to do it. What's your pricing? If I then said like, hey, I charge higher than listing prices because of this, this, and this, that's probably against me. That's working against me.
Yeah, because then they'll be like, well, I don't understand. Yeah. Like, what's different? Like, I don't see the difference. So how can, it's not really different. Like, can you just charge what you normally charge? Like, that's why you don't have to explain, like, this is my pricing for rentals and this is my pricing for non-rentals. And that's it. Why do you charge differently? Because they involve different things. And, you can come up with an answer that explains it. Like, oh, it's different. You don't have to say what you do, but, oh, each service involves different things. And that's it. Like something that's short to the point and keep coming. It's like they want to keep pressing you. That probably means that you don't need to work with them. But also just like, no, this is what my price is. And this is what I offer.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if you're confident in your pricing and you are like, you stay firm on that pricing, you're going to do a lot better and work with a lot more high quality clients than the people that are like, you can like, oh, well, I think I can maybe cut 100 here because I really want you as a client. You don't want them as a client if you're cutting the prices for them. I can speak from personal experience. You do not want them as a client.
They will be the worst.
Yes. So, well, I thank you for coming on the podcast. This conversation was fantastic. If people want to find you online, to kind of contact you, speak about business strategy or anything like that, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so my website is just strategybysasha.com, and I'm on Instagram at Strategy by Sasha, Facebook by Strategy by Sasha. I think that's also my TikTok. Although my TikTok is not, I do some business stuff on TikTok, but I also just play around on TikTok. So yeah, and then I have a Facebook group for creatives that's called Strategy for Creatives. So if they want to be in a community with like-minded women and ask their business questions and things like that, I do trainings in there. And so that's just Strategy for Creatives on Facebook too.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. This has been great. People should definitely reach out to you because we talked about a ton, but there's so much more that I'm sure you could speak on about business strategy. And I think creatives can definitely value from talking to a business strategist like yourself. So again, thank you for coming to the podcast, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rest of Us podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a rating or review on the podcasting platform of your choice. It really helps me see that you are enjoying the episode and also helps other people see the podcast. Also, please consider giving a follow on social media. All the links will be in the show notes down below. Also, in the show notes, there is a link to the Rest of Us newsletter. This is a platform where I'll send out different takeaways from the episode, resources that were mentioned in the episode, and also notifications about new episodes. So make sure you click the link to subscribe there. So episodes are released weekly, and I will see you on the next episode of the Rest of Us podcast.